If you are someone who tries really hard in everything, your health, your routines, your recovery, this might actually be surprising to hear. So by the end of this video, you will understand why trying harder can actually make things worse. And certainly in the case of things like sleep problems, chronic pain, anxiety, OCD, and PTSD, and why that is exactly. So, hi, I'm Jessica. I'm a therapist in Austin, Texas, and I specialize in sleep issues, chronic pain, OCD, PTSD, and then something called maladaptive overcontrol, which I'll say a little bit more about here in a second. So I help people understand how patterns like overcontrol, effort, threat sensitivity, stuff like that, can affect things like your sleep, your anxiety, and your nervous system. So before we get into it, I just want to briefly say that this content is for educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional mental health treatment. I can't give individual therapeutic advice through social media, so please always consult with a qualified mental health professional. All right, and you know what? Make sure you stay till the end because I'm actually going to explain a little bit about what flexibility actually means and why it's not the same as giving up or just relaxing. Okay, so the first thing I really want to get into is what overcontrol is. And I've done some other videos about this. So if you've been watching any of my content, you may already have an idea, but overcontrol, you think of it as a way of moving through the world. So overcontrol looks like wanting things to be done right or favoring structure and order. And some of us lean toward overcontrol and some of us lean toward under control. Neither one of these is inherently bad. So I'll link a blog down below where I delve into the differences between overcontrol and under control. But overcontrol is really characterized by a few different things. So things like very high self-discipline, very high rule following, high threat sensitivity, and then strong inhibition of emotional expression. So in the short term, this stuff works. It serves you in a lot of ways. I really like to say it's good till it's not. So I don't really treat overcontrol. I treat maladaptive overcontrol. So when does it become maladaptive? When does it start to work against you? Well, maladaptive overcontrol will train your nervous system to stay vigilant, to stay on guard. So constant effort, constant monitoring, and safety really becomes contingent on certainty. So let's talk now about why this effort feels protective to the nervous system. So it's really based on this belief that something important could go wrong if I stop paying attention. So if that is your belief, then of course you have to maintain constant vigilance. So when a problem shows up, whether it's poor sleep or pain or intrusive thoughts, the natural response is more control, more tracking, more correcting, more rules, more effort. But your brain doesn't hear or learn, I'm solving this. Your brain learns, oh, this is dangerous. So if this pattern sounds familiar, you're not alone. And hey, if you feel up to it, let me know in the comments if you've noticed effort ramping up when symptoms or problems start to appear for you. So, all right, so I'll talk now about how this same kind of learning loop shows up across all the different conditions that I work with as a therapist. So different diagnoses, but kind of same underlying mechanism. So let's talk about sleep, and in particular, really thinking about insomnia. So trying harder to sleep will make you more alert. And alertness and sleep can't really coexist in the same space. And so people will actually develop performance anxiety around sleeping. So I'm going to link a card up above. I did a video really diving into why trying harder to sleep is keeping you awake. So if sleep is your big struggle, check that video out. So chronic pain, let's look at another area that I work with. Well, in the case of chronic pain, constant monitoring increases what we call signal salience. So you know how when you're really on edge, everything is like, what was that? What's going on? What? That's signal salience. Every noise, everything that you encounter is a potential threat. And then pain gets louder, not because there's more damage, but because there's more attention. So I'll also link a card above. I did a video kind of delving a little bit more into the chronic pain topic area. So I'll link that above. OCD, another area that I do a lot of work in. So OCD, these what we call relief-seeking behaviors, so i.e. compulsions or rituals, the things that you do to feel less bad, they do reduce your anxiety temporarily. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're teaching your brain that uncertainty is intolerable. And so I'll also link a card. I did a video more in depth about OCD. And then finally, PTSD. Let's look at PTSD. So part of PTSD is avoidance of anything that reminds you of the trauma, avoidance of any thoughts or feelings related to the trauma, anything like that. And then also hypervigilance. People with PTSD tend to be very hypervigilant. Well, these two symptoms, again, they give you some relief, like they have a purpose, and they ultimately keep you stuck in PTSD. So I don't actually have a card linked here, so it sounds like maybe that's another idea for a video. And hey, let me know in the comments if you'd like that. Still a new channel, still kind of figuring stuff out. So same learning loop, all of these things. Sleep, chronic pain, OCD, PTSD, same learning loop, different iterations. So if you've had any aha moments so far, or you're finding this interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. I try to upload at least twice a month. I'm going to shoot for weekly uploads in the new year. We will see. Can't make any guarantees, but that's the intention, at least for now. Okay, so last thing that I really want to get into, kind of as promised at the beginning, is what does flexibility actually mean? Well, and I'm going to first talk about what it doesn't mean. So flexibility does not mean just letting symptoms run wild. It doesn't mean giving up, and it doesn't mean just relaxing. Like, just think about how many times have you probably been told, just relax. Okay, cool. I'll get right on that. It's not any of those things. It might be helpful to think of this as loosening the grip rather than completely letting go. Like, there's a lot of variation in how tightly you can grip something. You can grip it as tight as possible. You can let it completely go, but there's a lot of gradations in the middle there. So what does flexibility mean? What does that actually look like? Well, flexibility can mean reduced urgency, and that's huge for any of these sleep, chronic pain, all these areas that I work with. No matter like what the situation is, there's always so much urgency. There's this like, I have to fix it. I have to fix the problem right now. It's an emergency. It's urgent. Having a little bit more flexibility means less urgency. And less urgency is ultimately going to mean better sleep, less pain. It's a lot of these problems are ultimately going to get better when there's less urgency. Also, flexibility means you have more options to choose from. You have more options to choose from in terms of how to respond to something. And it also means the ability to, quote unquote, break a rule when the situation calls for it, rather than holding the rule so tightly no matter what the circumstances. Flexibility means that you can mostly follow the rules. But in those, one-off kind of situations where breaking the rule might make more sense, flexibility allows you to do that. So eventually your brain learns that nothing terrible happens even if you drop the effort. And that is really key here. So that is how real change happens. in all of those areas that I discussed earlier. So before we wrap up, I'll also share that I do send a monthly newsletter with content similar to what I discuss in my videos. I kind of rotate through my 5 areas. So if this has been useful to you, if this has been interesting, there will be a link down in the description. And please consider subscribing to that. So if this video resonates, I'll kind of wrap it up here. If this video resonates, doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It means that your brain and your nervous system, I guess your brain is part of your nervous system, your brain associates safety with control. And what it now needs to do is learn to associate safety with flexibility. So I'll also link a video where I delve into the idea of what it means to have too much self-control. I will link that above. So that's it. That's all I got. I really hope this was helpful, and thanks so much for watching.